Bulbs are the buried treasure of the garden. It's easy to forget you've planted them. Daffodils are the most popular of all spring bulbs, although usually doomed to appear in the chorus rather than as solo stars. But one man struggles to redress the balance. In Surrey, Martin Harwood can name any daffodil at 200 yards and collects them with messianic fervour. When did you first catch this daffodil fever?
Well, about 8 or 9 years ago, sort of had the land where I moved here and started collecting daffodils, and made a conscious effort to actually collect as many as I could, and the result is the actual collection.
How many have you got now?
2,500 varieties.
It's a fair old number, isn't it?
It's an amazing amount.
How many are there in all?
There's 23,000 on the register, of which it's thought 15, 16,000 are actually extinct. They're no longer in commerce and can't be found.
Where do you tend to find them now?
There are some in catalogues. I'm just breaking into Holland. I have to go around people's houses, around parks and gardens to actually see what's there from old plantings.
And you can only do that when they're out?
I can only do that when they're out. I mean, you can only identify the flower when it's there. A lot of them have names on, but they're wrongly named, or the name has actually been lost. So yes, April is a very busy month.
The glint in Martin Harwood's eyes somehow makes you feel that he won't rest until every one of the 8,000 varieties of daffodils still in cultivation has its labelled place in his collection.
The actual monitoring of them, the recording, the paperwork, does require a great input, because you obviously have to record where you've got them from, where they are in the beds now, or at lifting time. You obviously, because you're growing, say, 10 bulbs of one variety, after you've dug up the 10, you've got to net it and label it up. It's different.
Because out of the flowering season, one bulb looks exactly the same as the next.
That's right, yes. Once the flower's gone, you haven't got the faintest idea what it was.
It's amazing to think that all those garden daffs come from these tiny ones originally, isn't it?
Yes, well, these are some of the smaller species.
This is one of the most distinctive of the little species Narcissus, isn't it?
Yes, that's true Bulbocodium. A lot of people buy the yellow hoop petticoat, which is Bulbocodium conspicuous. This is what it all came from. This is the Bulbocodium that comes out of Spain. It's a clown. It's all
trumpet.
It's all trumpet and tiny little petals. These ones are actually green-backed, which sort of makes it quite distinctive.
Pretty.
It's a clown of a little flower. It's a good little rockery flower, as most of the small ones are. Unusual. This is one of the triandrous. This is Triandrus concolor. It throws anywhere between 1, 2, 3, 4 to a head. It's an off-white, a yellowish colour, like its sister, which is Triandrus albus, angel's tears. Hanging its head like little bells.
Much smaller, isn't it?
Much smaller. Nice little goblet-shaped cup we've got here.
And very swept-back petals.
Very swept-back, reflexed, twisted. Again, it will set true from seed. Good little garden flower, good little rockery flower. It's so variable.
You could get very hooked on these miniatures, couldn't you?
Yes, well, a lot of people do. I mean, they grow nothing else but the miniature daffodils.
Martin soon outgrew his Chobham garden and moved most of the collection to this field beside the A30, where his daffodils now bloom in neat rows under the Heathrow flight path. Which of all the thousands you've got on display here do you think would be the best garden daffodil?
Oh, without a doubt, it would have to be this one, which is St. Kevin. It's not a large flower. It looks like a trumpet. It's nicely balanced. It has flat petals, intense yellow colour. But best of all, it's virtually resistant to all diseases that are known to daffodil. It's certainly resistant to basal rot. It will catch anything else like botrytis or virus. But this one is a beautiful flower.
It's also a nicely proportioned flower, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
some of them have these huge sort of monster footballs balanced on top of stems,
Yes.
and down they go.
Soup plates and cauliflowers.
And where does it come in the long season of daffodil flowering?
This one is reasonably early. It flowers March into April. This one is flowering now in late April, mainly because it got planted in January.
So it's a forgiving bulb as well.
Most daffodils are forgiving. As long as you give them the right cultural conditions,
Yes.
they're quite happy.
And do you notice a big difference between the different varieties and how they clump up? I mean, do some bulk up faster than others?
Yes, there are those that will take maybe 3 or 4 years to actually produce an offset or a daughter bulb, where St. Kevin is a very good increasing. It will increase into a clump.
This is the place to stand, isn't it, with all the scent coming up. This is wonderful. What is it?
It's an American variety called quail. It's a jonquil.
That's where it gets its scent from, then, the jonquil.
The jonquil scent. It's a strong grower. It's mid to late season, and it's an intense yellow colour, and will normally throw 2, 3, sometimes 4 flowers on a stem.
We've got a fiver here.
first time I've seen a 5. It's
Really?
small. It's smaller in its floret size, but to have 5 on a stem is very good.
Yeah. Is this a good garden flower, do you reckon?
Very excellent garden flower.
And it would be late flowering, wouldn't it?
It's late flowering. From one bulb you can expect 2 or 3 of these stems to just come from one bulb. It increases very well. But
it doesn't need much sun to tickle that scent into
It's the
full
perfume
production.
that comes from it. You could sort of lay down in the trenches here and say, yes, this will do me for the rest of the day.
These small cluster-flowered narcissi belong to the group known as Tozettas. Like all daffodils, they're best planted in September, with a pinch of bone meal in the planting hole to help them on their way. These particular ones, however, can be a bit tender.
Perfectly hardy here. Further north you go, they may become tender.
It's the Tozettas that you can often use as bowl varieties, isn't it, to plant indoors?
The common one there is Tozetta papyricus, or the paper white as it's called. That is totally monocarpic. You flower it and you throw it away because you'll never get it to flower again. You need an intense heat on them to actually get them to flower again. These perform much better when they get a good summer baking, so I'll keep the weeds off these and give them the real baking in the summer. Avalanche just has to be my favourite flower. It's highly fragrant. On a good season, it's going to give me a lot of flowers on one stem, and it's fairly long-lasting. They flower mid-April into mid-May usually, and on a warm, still sort of May night, you get a highly intense perfume pervading the whole of the garden.
Yeah, it's really quite intoxicating, that
Another
smell,
one
isn't
that's perfumed are the poeticas. These are the latest to flower. They're always intense ice white on the petals, and usually with a yellow cup and a red wire rim on the outside of them.
These are the poeticus ones, the ones that people always call narcissi.
They call these narcissi, or they call them old pheasant eye, which is in fact Poeticus recurvus. These are all hybrid ones here. They also tend to throw their petals a little bit backwards as well.
Yes,
they recurve,
yes.
showing these species breeding from them. Again, very fragrant on a warm evening. They're good for lengthening the season. These will go into the middle of May to the end of May quite happily.
These also are good for planting in grass, aren't they, these types? They cope very well in wild plantings. I suppose that's actually quite how they're found in the wild, isn't it? In Spain and France.
Oh, they grow there by the acres in the fields and valleys. You see masses and masses of them. And it's just a mass of this white scented flower.
Yes. Split corona daffodils have a more recent history. This stripy one's spring diamond.
Well, the split coronas have been known since the early 1900s. They came from a mutation from a variety called Victoria.
A natural mutation?
A natural mutation. And all the split coronas that we see today have that as their grand or great-grandparents. It's all back to the one bulb. And there's maybe now up to 90 to 100 different varieties.
Still looks like a daffodil, whereas some of these seem to have drifted on to be something else, don't they?
Yes, well, it's part of the policy of getting them bigger and brighter. It doesn't always work.
Some people wouldn't touch a split corona with a barge pole, and double daffodils can arouse even stronger emotions.
There's a double daffodil down here that I think is one of the worst examples of a daffodil that I've ever seen. It's a mutation from a small cup. It's just completely doubled inside of the cup. It looks almost like a monster.
It's like something from the B movie. There's some vampire teeth sticking out.
Almost a triffid. It's called petit foie, and there are several daffodils that mutate. This wasn't bred to be like that. It mutated from a single variety, and it's been bulked up from it. And it seems to be well received, but I abhor it, actually. I can't actually stand it.
So why'd you grow it?
Well, I have to. It's part of the national collection. It exists, therefore I grow it.